someday and in some year. I'm in my late 50s. Time is in a state of flux. Well, I mean, that's arguable, really, as to whether time is in a state of flux or not, to be honest. Some would say it is. Some would say it most certainly is not. Some would say it is maybe. Some would say it definitely is not. Some would say it absolutely is. Okay, so today is Thursday. 48 hours have passed. And the following things have happened. The count appears to favor the Republicans for the presidency. Donald Trump, the 45th president, will be probably certified as the 47th president. Now, this has happened before in American history. In the late 1800s it happened, 19th century. After the Civil War, in a period of great division and flux, you had, was it Cleveland? It might have been Cleveland. Again, I am not on the internet. When you're here, this is studios, so there's no internet, there's no telephones, there's no looking things up, there's no, knowledge of the googly type. Instead, we're just using our memory, our thoughts, and our reflections. Now, in the wake of the election, there's a few things. One, I'm going to be reading Dialectic of Enlightenment by Horkheimer and Adorno. This is the ongoing philosophical readings that I've been conducting in the last 7.5, 8 years with greater intensity. But I've been reading philosophy all along. I never studied philosophy, so like everything, I'm an outsider. I'm an outsider in art, I'm an outsider in philosophy. I'm not an outsider in writing, it's the one in reading. Those are the two areas where I'm clearly not an outsider. But Dialectic of Enlightenment, Horkheimer and Adorno, I shall be reading that. If anybody has any thoughts about Dialectic of Enlightenment from 1947, the notes that were privately published and then only secondarily published again. This one's by Stanford, the English translation, probably early part of this century, 2001, 2, something like that. So I am going to be looking at that. Coffee. I haven't looked at props in San Francisco or any of the local election issues at the moment, because this year I didn't follow or participate really in any kind of election journalism. I didn't want to pretend to you or anyone else that I had any knowledge of it. When I was younger, I think I believed I had a finger on the pulse. I knew what the country was thinking, what it was like, what it was about. I don't feel I have that anymore, certainly from without. That is to say, I don't participate in Facebook, Instagram, X, Snapchat, none of it. I am not on any of it. So the beauty of that is liberation of thought, freedom of the mind, less stress and doom scrolling, less influence from false parties, people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. That can just distract even sometimes, even if it doesn't inform or disinform. So just eliminating on worlds of that stuff by quitting all of the social media back in April of 2021. It's now been 3 years. So basically this entire election, if you will, and the Biden presidency, I wasn't really on social media. So, moving forward now, I think that one of the things I think is that I'm going to try to figure out a more active way to incorporate. In Trump's America, it is going to be meaningful to be a company or a corporation or an entity for a person like myself more than it would to be an individual. I think that quantifying that under what will be the new construction is a good idea. If it is the most conservative face of American policy, that will benefit from this, economically I'm talking about, because people said economic policy is what was driving them on this, then I think that that is something I'm going to have to do, incorporate. Now, I have a limited liability corporation. It is my atelier. And I guess what I'm saying is now, not so much for profit, but for just to participate as a real man in the context of what's going on, incorporation is going to have to be more meaningful. So I'm going to have to produce some things for sale. And make them more relevant to everything, I guess. And to that end, there's 2 areas that I will be participating in, I think, coming up. One is I'm going to start, for Giants fans, there's some really cool stuff I have here that I'm going to start producing through GiantsBaseballCorner.com, which is my blog on the Giants. You know, it's just a blog. I haven't really done much there, except just emote and communicate my thoughts and ideas about the team. I'm going to put some of these really beautiful images that I took myself, so they're not available anywhere else, and I'm going to make them available through the mechanism of the Giants Baseball Corner, GBC. And for Giants fans, that'll be one way that we can start, I don't know, again, I'm not pushing anything, so it's up to you. But I think there's some pretty great images. I have them in the corner, and if you ever watch Giants Baseball Corner, you've seen many of them. So that's one thing I'll start doing through the atelier. And then another thing we're going to do is we're going to start creating some images in replication. To that end, we're going to mail a lot of these to the museums and institutions that already own my work. So I'm going to do another few of these issues of The Rightist. So far I've made 50. This is The Rightist. And The Rightist is my publication, book or zine, depending on how you look at it. And you can see the videos online. I need glasses. I've described it, so I'm not going to repeat that here. But The Rightist is going to be, the second edition should be done here shortly. I ran out of paper for the covers, and had to buy some more, so that's finally arrived here. And I have some covers we can drop in, so that'll be good. There have been 50 made so far. There are 50 to go. 100 in the second edition of The Rightist. Now, as I said, I wasn't following local issues. I was kind of solely looking at the federal election as a pulse of the nation type of thing. And I think I realized it's not a pulse of the nation. Turnout is so low because what happened in the era of Occupy and in the era of the anti-war movements, this country lost a generation of people. The interest of a generation of people is absent here. So what you have is you have the elders, and this was very much an election of that the elders won. I mean, that we have to acknowledge. It reminds me of elections in Japan, if I'm honest. this election, right? I mean, the security of the elders was the primary concern, and their economic security was linked to it. So what we got was the representative of American exceptionalism sold that hard to the elders. The generation of people who just kind of crushed their ideals by repeatedly calling them a focus group and eliminating them. You're very proud of this too, that's the thing. Your pride in it is what I find sad. But that group doesn't participate. And the youngers are divisible into halves very easily using pop culture. So what you've got is a carnival barker who can convince the Republicans he can do it, and the Republicans can use him as a cover, just as they did with Reagan or Schwarzenegger, for whatever nefarious things they want that benefit a limited few rather than the whole. This is the fear, I think, that many Democrats have. Not just Democrats, but, you know, many Americans have. Obviously, I didn't look at the vote count. I actually just went to bed. I didn't bother until I saw that Democrats resigned, as usual, unwilling to explore whether or not there is any falsity or election malfeasance, because that would make the opposing side bark hypocrisy. So now, whether there is malfeasance or not, we have no way of, I guess, fairly accusing anyone of malfeasance, because it sounds like you're over the top if you do that. And the ultimate and over the top, in my opinion, was the traitorous act of attacking the cities, the capital. You don't do that, dude. You don't see me doing that. You don't see good Americans doing that. You see rotten Americans doing that. You guys are rotten. Even if you're one, you're still rotten. Trust me, there have been rotten presidents and there have been rotten people who elected them for centuries. That's not new. I've only seen a handful in my time. Since Jimmy Carter. Well, I arrived during Nixon, of course. And I've watched with all of you as the nation has changed into what it is now. Authored at the hands of a cabal, really. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Well, I hope they understand that this isn't a fucking mandate. This is a joke. This is a split nation divided along lines that cannot even be drawn properly because of the media, which has blown out our understanding of ourselves and created a false image. A simulation, you might say. Well, simulation is raring now, let me tell you. Well, that's not going to work. I'm going to use an X-Acto for this, so I'm going to grab an X-Acto.
talking about. See, that's a blade you should definitely replace.
It's been sitting for however long.
Hi, YouTube viewers. Just hanging out here after the election.
Continuing to make the rightest 100 copies in edition 2 of the rightest is what we are working on in studio today as we contemplate the direction of the nation and my own fears about it, thoughts about it. You know, for several years now, I've been telling people that I feel very much like the thing is targeting me, telling me it doesn't want me as an immigrant to be who I am, and in fact, authoring a new America that one has to be in order to be American, which is totally wrong. Not even the colonists would agree with that. I mean, that's completely why, in order for the colonists to even get 13 to group together, they had to make compromises that are what is radical and interesting about the Declaration and the Constitution. The things that Trump just barks about like a lunatic, but doesn't really understand. I mean, I'm fairly certain the man couldn't pass the citizenship test, right? I mean, we can agree on that, right? Someone should give Trump the citizenship test the day before he takes the oath. See what the outcome of that is. Now, there's an idolatry to the group about him and about the office under him, or him in the office, I would say, that is unwarranted and terrifying. Yeah, you don't do that. Our ability as journalists to criticize the president, no matter who they are, must be protected. It is the fundamental way that we created this nation. It's through a free press. Great publishers like Thomas Paine. Now, I'm not Thomas Paine, nor am I criticizing the president or the system. I am a publisher. Look, I just made a book. It's called The Rightist. And I should be able to put whatever I want in this book. I should be able to make this book as you've just seen me make one. Actually, it doesn't have a cover yet, so it's not a book. That's MTK's rule. The book's gotta have a cover, right, dude? Little zeitgeist matches, we all like those. You know why, right? Cute babes is why.
Alright, I need to create a cover. It'll fit with this one. Working on oyster catchers. Drawing oyster catchers, which are birds I saw out on Long Island. I saw these birds, right? The oyster catchers.
Okay, so you can allow something like this to damage your sensibility, you know, or you can not. That's up to you, right? How did we start this? We started by saying that this this had happened before. Donald J. Trump is not the first person to have it be that he was unelected, then he was elected again. Now, when that happened in the past, there were a lot more parties, okay? There were a lot more parties. And one of the things I think is interesting is that the Democrats, for many years now, have, in many ways, fought to end the notion of multiple parties because they feared, and probably rightfully so, that such a move would damage their ability to aggregate voters. But I think it's more interesting that without a personality like the president, incumbent president, the left succumbs to infighting anyway. So even with two parties, you lost, right? So if you lost with two parties, and you lost with 7 parties, and you lost with 3 parties, you lost with 5 parties, there seems to be a pattern here. And none of it's very satisfying to the voter at the end of the day. Right? So I would like to talk today about several things while I'm making some art, which is what I do. Let's see, what is going on here? Good Lord. My bag is a mess from travel. Look at that. Look at my box of tools, totally empty. Yokotawara. All the tools have fallen out of my bag. How lunacy is this? Oyster catchers and some Ferlinghetti. More together. All right. What are we talking about? Grover Cleveland? That's right. That's the kind of content you get here.
Hey, there's a pretty bad riptide right here.
There's a pretty bad riptide right here.
Further down or up there?
Why do I slap on a Texas
They're pretty bad.
accent when I talk to people on the beach? It's a question you should ask yourself. Because I refuse to ask it. Alright. We are making the rightist, and we're talking about Grover Cleveland. You guys remember Grover Cleveland, don't you? What a crazy lunatic guy that guy was, Grover Cleveland. I used to come over here real drunk, you know, talking about war with Iran. Of course, it was called Persia then. No, Grover Cleveland never came here. Don't be ridiculous. I wonder what AI says about that. Grover Cleveland. Right, so now we've elected a guy who was unelected before. Wait, no, that's not right. We did that with Bush. Now we've elected a guy who claimed he won, and we said he lost. So, what do you think? Oh, and by the way, he's a vengeful, mean-spirited person. So, what do you think? You think everything's just going to go smooth now, probably, for you? You can criticize him? Well, again, this is where personality collides with theory. Carl Barker, you see, is much better at certain things than you. Whether you want that to be true or not, it turns out it is irrelevant. There's only one way to make it relevant, that is to have an educated populace. Only there's a barrier between you and educating the populace, and that barrier is a corporate mentality, which seeks to control mechanism of shoppers. Gotta keep them shopping, baby. Gotta keep on shopping, baby. Christmas time is a-coming. Gotta keep on shopping. Shop, shop, shop. Help the economy. Shop, shop, shop. Nothing else matters. Buy shit from China. Buy shit from everywhere. Shop, 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 shop. What you say? And universe be damned. The universe be damned. So, moving forward, Grover Cleveland is now president again. Was it Grover Cleveland? One of you needs to look that up. It was, right? It was like 1883, 1882, 1880, no, 1892, 1898, something like that. Somebody look that up and see if I'm right. So Grover Cleveland is back in the White House. More significantly, Senate under his control. More significantly, Supreme Court, definitely more significantly, is under his control. And all of them have shown themselves to be without spine. That is to say, they believe that he has popular support, which is terrifying. The nation's divided right in half. There is no mandate in a nation divided this badly. There's no mandate, dude. That's a ludicrous notion to suggest there's a mandate in a nation this divided. But that damn Bush did it, and now clowns that think they can just walk around doing it, you know? There's no mandate. We're all livid at each other, no one's happy. Those who are happy right now, they're happy for reasons that have nothing to do with policy, I don't think. So, what do you do in that instance? I don't know. You go, okay, well, you got the keys to the building, go ahead, what are you gonna do now? I wouldn't give Donald Trump the keys to this house, even if he was the president. I'd be like, nah, I don't think so, dude. I mean, one thing I'll say is very few people have come to this house. To be invited to this house is a unique thing. In the last 40 years, maybe 15 people have walked through that door. No, I'm going to say a dozen. I can count them. Let's figure it out. You want? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, in the last 10 years, a dozen people have been invited to enter this place. And so, the current incumbent is not invited. Let's be very clear. And I'm not sure any of you who voted for him were invited. So, now comes the time for the sign that I said I might have to make one day. I was telling you about, Mark. Remember the sign I said I'm going to have to make? Whites must be vetted. I'm going to make a sign that says whites must be vetted. Only now it doesn't make sense because black and brown people voted for him too, right? So that's a pointless sign. Everyone must be vetted. My opinion is that you all were deluded into this action. You want to believe that everything's okay. You want to believe that the USA is the vision of. And it's not. Sorry. Every intellectual can tell you this. Anybody who's read a book can tell you this. Not a book, but people who have read, you know? We're readers. We're not just fucking jerk-offs with opinions. We're readers, so we're putting things together over decades and centuries. Current president, I don't think he's read more than 10 books in his life. Sorry, the soon-to-be president, rather. Okay, look at that. Number 51. Of the rightist has been accomplished. It's a nice little book. It remains relevant no matter who wins the presidency, this book. In my opinion. Can't say that about very many books. Well, no, sure you can. The presidency is not that big of a deal. But in this instance, with all of the Senate and the et cetera, we're talking about terrifying policy shifts that are racist in nature and lack truth. That's what I fear. Pure lies. Well, there's already pure lies, aren't there? The rightist. Well, I like this little book. Should we make another one? No, we're talking about Grover Cleveland, aren't we? There is a cementing of a national narrative that comes with the Carnival Barker winning again. That is threatening to truth. And puts us in a very tricky position. My conclusion is that the United States is indefensible. The United States is philosophically and spiritually indefensible. The United States is indefensible.